Howdy, lieutenants and economists.
The most volatile, evil, disgusting things on the planet, humans. If you have a video request, you can always go to assholeconsulting.com.
Yeah, I am gonna charge you, kids. And that is the importance of not fucking up.
You are such an asshole!
Oh, Asshole Consulting here again. God almighty, I was hoping I'd have a weekend open. I don't want to answer on weekends. People wondering, hey, you gonna get to it? Yeah, I'll get to it, just not on the weekend. I've granted myself weekends off. Anyway, so if you have a question and you want me to answer it, you can go to assholeconsulting.com and you'll pay! Because you are a fool if you do not charge for your time. I get a kick to this day. Oh, what are you charging for? Well, you're kind of a dick. Asshole Consulting. I have two related questions about the U.S. and Canadian economies. More specifically, it's related to the U.S. stock market and how it relates to Obama and the Canadian dollar. I was having a discussion with my friend of mine about how I largely disagree with the policies of Obama. My friend mentioned that after the crash of 2008 and 2009, this was about the time that Obama was elected. He was inaugurated in 2009. You gotta know when the guy takes over. The Dow Jones Industrial Average soared to well over 18,000, which was a significant jump from the few years previous when Bush was in power. My friend then brought up the Canadian dollar, the reason being that the two of us live in Canada. He mentioned that for Canadians it was beneficial to have a dollar that was approximately 70 to 80 cents compared to the US dollar. Well, hang on. You got to be, I'm wondering if he misquoted. He explained that the reason why it was beneficial was that it would help increase exports and eventually increase the wealth of Canada. Okay, probably what he meant is that 70 to 80 US cents could buy a Canadian dollar. People kind of, they misquote it. It's understandable. I mean, even I misquote. But you have to understand what is the more powerful currency. So if not one US dollar even, 70 US cents can buy you a Canadian dollar, that means the dollar is very strong. And the Canadian dollar is very weak. And when people look at that, they say, whoa, look at how much cheaper it is over in Canada. Like, look, we got to pay, because you got to pay Americans dollars. And if dollars become too powerful, too strong, too valuable, people say, well, we'll go to China, we'll go to Canada. So I think he kind of switched it there. Anyway, going on. A reason being that more countries would rather buy from us than the U.S. Correct. My two questions are whether this is is there a correlation between Obama and his policies and why there is a soar with the stock exchange. The second question, is there any benefit and relationship between having a low dollar and increasing wealth in Canada due to increase in the exports? Thank you, Alex. All right, we'll take the first one. Is there a correlation? Yes, there is a mathematical correlation. As Obama has been in office, the stock market has more than doubled. Now, the real question is it causal? All right, and usually the left use this to get out of it, like when you show government spending as a percentage of GDP and the decreasing economic growth. It's correlation, it's not causation. Here, for once, this is correct because it doesn't matter. I mean, it can matter, but usually presidents don't do jack shit to help out the economy and boost the stock market. Now, I have to caution that because we're going to get into central banking later, but there is no correlation between the president and the stock market. What should drive the stock market, and historically has, but I shouldn't get there, has been earnings of the underlying stocks, the underlying companies that make up the stock market. And that is the only thing that should drive a stock market up, or news that would indicate that earnings would go up. So there is that, like GDP came in higher than expected. Okay, so the economy is growing so that. But what should drive stock markets and stock prices is the earnings and dividends that a company pays. That's the only thing that matters. That's the only thing that gives stocks value. Same thing with rental property. The only thing that gives rental property value is the rents it generates. Now, that's what should drive the stock market. What has happened, and this has happened since Bush was in office, going back to Alan Greenspan, is the Federal Reserve has artificially lowered interest rates, as well as more recently we have quantitative easing. And this money, in that it buys off the bad assets from the banks have cash. There's really no booming economy. There's no really to lend it that's quality at high rate of return. So what do? They throw it in the stock market. Also, companies can borrow at very low interest rates and they repurchase their shares. So, and then you add to that, what's happening since 1978 is the stock market has been flooded with trillions of dollars worth of retirement dollars for 401k and IRA. So the stock market no longer represents the underlying earnings of the stocks that make up the stock market. It is now all these cash flows that are coming in from other places that never ask the question, is this worth our rate of return? Right now, you can expect about a 2% rate of return based on dividends, which is not a lot. But people keep throwing their money in there because they got nothing else to do with it, I suppose. But this disconnects not only any kind of causal relationship between what should drive a stock market, that is profits and dividends, as well as any kind of causal relationship that would have happened with what presidential policies take place, be it Obama, Reagan, or Bush. It really doesn't matter. You could say maybe tangentially, the president discussing with the Federal Reserve. What the fuck? Oh, hang on. I'll have to get that later. That's another thing. You could say that the president kind of influences Federal Reserve policy, but that is indirect or tangential. So it isn't like Obama. So and this is a common thing. And your friend is an idiot. Just tell him, I said, yeah, you, dude, you're a fucking idiot. You don't know what you're talking about in economics. Shut up and pay attention. It's not like the president has anything to do with the stock market, okay? It's a weak, typical leftist, but sometimes rightists will do it too, but it's an ignorant argument. Well, see, the stock market went up. That has nothing to do with GDP growth, unemployment, income per capita, nothing. Stock prices went up. Yeah, stock prices went up in the 90s too. Do you remember that little stock market bubble we had during the dot-com days? So stop it. Knock it off fucking already with the stock market went up. The economy must be doing well. It's like the guy ran really good in the Olympics. The economy might as well be doing well. I mean, there's no relation anymore. So there's that. Now, the other thing where your friend is right is where a weak currency will help that country, its export economy, do because it's cheaper. This is why China has an artificially low exchange rate. They manipulate it, they control it, and they have an artificially low exchange rate. So it makes their goods cheaper. You ever wonder why an iPad, an iPhone, all these electronics we get from China is so damn cheap? It's not just because they work for pennies on the dollar. It's because China keeps their fucking currency really low. If you were allowed to have a currency fluctuate in the free market, people say, look at all this production over in China, look at all their assets, the value of the yuan, their currency would go up. And then all of a sudden, American labor or Canadian labor would become cheaper relative to the Chinese. But they know what they're doing. They're keeping it artificially low so that everyone buys their shit from them. I don't know why they're doing it. I think they're screwing themselves over, but that's a different discussion for another time. But yes, if all of a sudden the US dollar gets very expensive, you don't want to come to the U.S. and buy our booze, except we don't have taxes on it. You don't want to come here and buy our cars. You want, it's cheaper over here in Canada. And likely we'd say, whoa, look at how cheap the booze is in Canada, or look at how cheap lumber is, or whatever it is. We're going to buy from Canada instead of domestically here. So that is correct. But there, once again, the dollar is strong for no reasons to do with Obama. He's done his best to weaken it with debt and deficit spending and anti-capitalist policies and Obamacare. But once again, it's more that we're not the most corrupt fuck nation on the planet, and you have problems in Greece, you have problems in China, and now people are flooding these currencies and coming to the US dollar as a safe haven. So that's why the dollar is expensive. But your friend is reaching. I would not want to participate in this economic debate because it would be ended, and I say, please go study more. This is not a debate. This is you throwing shit at a wall or regurgitating shit you heard. Now, I'm sure your friend is very nice and friendly, but he doesn't know what he's talking about when it comes to economics. So anyway, hope that helps out. We all learned a little bit about international economics. Toodles.